Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our top 10 scariest moments in films and cinema. And we have just covered numbers 10 to 6, so we are now going to press on and cover numbers 5 to 1, not surprisingly. So, how are you feeling?
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Have you changed your shirt?
I have, yeah. I thought as we were getting to ever closer to Halloween,
Yeah.
what could be scarier than uh, a band who just paddle out chart-topping, safe, generic Sunday dinner music and
Yeah.
manage to fill arenas with it.
I can see that. Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought, what could be more terrifying?
Oh my gosh.
So
yeah. Okay. Terrifying. Ah.
No,
You might want to tape up the.
Yeah.
On that note.
On that note.
Number 5.
Number 5, yes. So for my number 5, a film from 1985, Legend, directed by Ridley Scott, starring a very early Tom Cruise.
Oh wow!
Have you ever seen Legend?
No,
You've never
no.
seen it. Something I'll just talk about these films in general, really. But early to mid 80s fantasy children's films, something really unsettling and creepy about them in general.
Yeah.
If you want to mention The Dark Crystal,
literally was just thinking that.
Legend, Return to Oz.
Yeah.
Terrifying film for children.
The Mark Twain one.
Mark Twain one. Labyrinth. All these films, The Never-Ending Story, which we'll come on to a bit later on. Mid to late 80s fantasy children's films are something really, really deeply terrifying about them. And I don't know what it is in terms of whether it's like the way they're shot or the slightly soft focus lenses or what it is about them, but there's something really unnatural about them. And I find them absolutely terrifying. And I've got vivid memories of watching this film when I was very young, because I would have been 4 when this came out.
Okay.
And I remember seeing it on TV, specifically Tim Curry, horror and comedy stalwart that he is. His character absolutely petrified me, because I don't know if you've ever seen the character I'm talking about, but he is this one here. And his character is basically called Darkness.
Oh, he sounds great.
And he is basically what the embodiment of Satan looks like to many people. He's about 15 feet tall. He's got red skin, giant black horns, yellow eyes and fangs, and he speaks in unearthly demonic voice. And he absolutely petrified me when I was little, as you can probably imagine. And just the fact that his character's name is just called Darkness, like he is the embodiment of evil. And I must admit, I rewatched this film about 2 years ago or so, and there's another character in the film. I think her name's Mucklehead Meg, who's like a hag who lives in the swamp, who's also terrifying. But she is nothing compared to Tim Curry's Darkness, who is literally a living nightmare in this film. And I must have seen this film when I was about 8 years old to begin with, and it stuck with me ever since. He's absolutely petrifying in it.
Oh, that Tim Curry.
Yeah. And there was a story I read recently the other day about how much time he had to spend in prosthetics in the makeup chair. I think it took something like 12 hours a day to put it on. And then they eventually whittled it down to like 8 or 9, but he looks absolutely unrecognizable in it. And he's just absolutely terrifying in it. He's basically one of the most nightmarish characters of my entire childhood.
He's always terrifying, and that's why I love him.
He is. He's brilliant. He manages to straddle the divide between hilarious and terrifying, doesn't he?
That kind of makes it worse.
Yeah, exactly. There's a really funny video on on YouTube called I think it's just called 3 Minutes of Tim Curry Laughing,
Oh my god.
and it's all of his characters. Home Alone 2, Clue, Charlie's Angels, every film he's been in, just a solid video of him laughing. So if you ever get too hung up on Tim Curry being terrifying, just stick this video on. I think it'll really help.
Great, thanks for the tip.
So yeah, Tim Curry laughing.
Cool. Are you ready for mine?
I'm ready for yours, yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready for mine. I can't remember what it was. It is... yes. I've been excited to talk about this one.
Oh, okay.
I think it's one that maybe you wouldn't be expecting.
Mm.
So, my number 5 is The Fourth Kind. And there's a story behind this.
Is that the alien abduction one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't seen it myself, but yeah.
Don't bother. Yes, it is the alien abduction film, and it annoyed a lot of critics and 14-year-old me, because it was marketed as being real. Now, not that I actually believed that it was real, but things scare me a lot more when there's no proof either way. So even if I watch, I don't know, like a Bigfoot documentary or something, if there's no actual proof that that isn't real, it will still stick with me.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I think it's quite illogical.
Yeah.
It was quite annoying because there's a whole opening scene of Mila Jovovich talking about how this is a mixture of dramatizations and real archived footage.
Yeah.
And they set it up so it's like side by side. So her acting as the main character and then the real person.
See, yeah.
So both are acted, so it's actually really annoying.
Yeah.
And they also went further and they made all these fake websites with fake studies, because the main character is some sort of psychologist, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying, oh, all her studies are real, like you can go and find all her documents, and it was all fake, like they made it all up on this website.
Yeah.
So it's quite annoying, because usually with things like that, they'll openly say, maybe at the end in the credits, like, oh, by the way, this is fake.
Yeah. Or the classic based on true events.
Yeah.
We made it all up, but we just want to make you think it's all
Yeah,
real.
exactly.
Yeah.
Which I don't think there was anything in the credits, but anyway, it got panned pretty much when it came out because people were like, okay, this is fake, great.
Yeah.
But it's so at the time when I watched it, I obviously didn't know that. I looked it all up afterwards.
Yeah.
So while I was watching it, the end is absolutely terrifying. So yeah, when I watched it with a friend, and we obviously didn't know it was fake when we were watching it.
Mm-hmm.
So the ending is the main character trying to contact the aliens through like some kind of weird hypnosis.
Okay, yeah.
And the video goes all kind of staticky and everything.
Yeah.
The alien kind of speaks through her in this weird distorted voice and everything. And that didn't scare me. What scared me was that her mouth kind of elongates, which at first I thought was because the video was kind of distorting. So I thought it was just kind of dragging her mouth. And I was like, oh, that's kind of creepy. But then I think it did actually stretch her mouth out in the film, because after it does whatever it does to her, you don't really see it because it's really distorted. She then like kind of flops onto the chair, and then all her mouth will like
it's mangled.
So I think it like dislocated her jaw or something.
To speak or something.
It's pretty gross, and it really stuck with me. I was like, oh my gosh, what is this?
I can imagine. Anything like Jaws been a mouth's been violated and things like there's the film Dead Silence by James Wan, where people like are having their jaws ripped open by this witch who's, I won't go into the plot, but basically any sort of jaw violation or something is really grim, isn't it? Yeah.
That's why it disturbed me a lot. And also where it wasn't like being ripped or anything, it was just kind of stretched out. So that was really horrible. And it looked kind of realistic. It just looked like some distorted video. And then straight after that, it shows an interview with her like talking about all these events or whatever, and she's like in a wheelchair. So you're like, oh my god, it broke her
it all really
neck
happened
or something. You're like, oh my god, look what it did to her. So immediately after this, obviously I had to look into it, because I was like, oh my god, what did I just watch? And I had absolute nightmares and things as well, even after finding out it was fake. Like it really stuck with me. But I was really annoyed. I was like,
I can imagine.
I just got scared for no reason. Like, I wish I'd found that out beforehand, because I probably still would have enjoyed the film, but it wouldn't have scared me so much.
At least you'd go into it knowing it was all just sort of dramatised, and that you wouldn't feel cheated by it almost.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because there was that film called Veronica, wasn't it, on Netflix, that has been peddled as the scariest film ever made, i.e. the film hasn't been very much of a success, so we need word of mouth marketing, which is free, to peddle the film to make sure it's a success. But that film actually, I think is it that film that ends with without an ending?
I haven't actually seen it.
I haven't seen it myself, I have to admit, but there's either that film or there's one of a similar title which basically says, oh, and by the way, to find out what happened at the end, consult this website.
Oh my god.
So the screen just goes black and then it just says, consult this website to find out what happened. And then you go on the website and you're like, oh, it's just nothing.
I think this one ended with it saying the main character disappeared or something, and it was like, oh, where'd she go?
Yeah.
Go read her documents, go to this website, same sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's why people were a bit more annoyed, because again, there's loads of found footage films with like Blair Witch. People did believe that obviously at first. Yeah. And they made a really cool blog thing about it. Like a fake blog, didn't they?
Yeah. That's the thing with this sort of film, you have to lay the foundations first.
Yeah.
And then build the house on it, don't you?
Yes.
You can't just throw out this lame product and then try and build the foundations in afterwards, because it's just not going to...
Yeah. You should watch the scene though, because it actually does kind of hold up. Like I was watching, I was like, oh my god, that is actually quite scary. But I think I still would have found that scary if I'd have known that it was fake. It just annoyed me because I was an angsty teenager.
Yeah.
But yes, that is my number 5.
Oh, okay. Excellent. That sounds like... It does sound like a really scary film, but I've seen a lot of really good alien abduction films lately, so I'm not sure if I want to take a step back by watching Dark Sky, The Fourth Kind.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's good, but it just gave me sleepless nights.
Yeah.
Because it was marketed as being real.
Yeah.
And I was a teenager. So, yeah.
Obviously, it had a profound effect on you as a young girl.
Actually, I think I was 15.
Oh.
No, I was older than that. Oh my god, sorry everybody, I've lied to you. I think I was 16 actually, because it's 2009. I was born in 93. Yeah, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I hope you can forgive me.
That's okay, you can just turn our YouTube channel into a house of lies. That's fine.
Sorry. Do you want me to go to the shed?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, yeah.
2 hours later.
Okay, so number 4.
Okay, so my number 4 is a little bit of an offbeat one. A French film from 2008 called Martyrs.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of Martyrs?
I have heard of Martyrs, yeah.
Well, they remade it in American in 2015, and they really sanitized the remake.
Yeah.
I haven't actually seen the remake, I have to admit, but the fact that it's a 15 suggests it's quite tame. And apparently they completely changed the ending as well.
Yeah.
And for me, Martyrs from 2008 by Pascal Laurier, I think is how you say that.
That's a nice name.
Yeah. It's hard to know where to begin to talk about this film, but basically, I watched this film in 2011, and it is one of the most horrific films I've ever watched in my life.
Yeah.
There's a film that's similar to this called Inside, which is a French horror film directed by Maury and Bustillo, I think it is, and that was really, really repulsively violent and really grim and really grueling. But somehow Martyrs is actually worse because the psychological effects of the ending to this film basically has really, really stuck with me, and it haunts me whenever I think about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it or if you want me to tell you what it's about roughly.
I know what happens because I'm probably not going to watch it.
Yeah.
I'd really like to, but again, it's this whole like gross thing.
Yeah. I mean, the whole film is basically a relentless exercise in endurance. Like, can you actually make it to the end of the film? Because it often makes these films you can't watch more than once lists. and that is definitely up there because the whole film starts off really, really grim and gets progressively more and more bleak as it goes along. And it, again, I won't go into detail because it's one of these films you should really experience once in your life. Towards the end of the film, it sort of heads off in a completely different direction to what you thought it was going to. But for me, it's the ending. Now, I've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of horror films in my time, but this is the only film that has ever made me feel dizzy whilst I was watching it. And I don't mean just like metaphorically dizzy, I mean like actually dizzy, because I actually had to pause the end of this film and go and sit in the bathroom with my eyes shut for 20 minutes because I felt so ill.
Wow.
And I've never ever had that before or since in a horror film. But this film did that to me.
Wow.
And I've seen a lot of really, really, really violent films in the past. I won't name them because I could name 10 or 20 of them. But this is the only film that has ever made me feel physically ill.
That's
And I don't know if I need to say any more than that.
No, I mean, I would like to show the bit, but I feel like it might be a bit much. What do you think? Maybe we should give a little warning because this is...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, extremely graphic content coming up.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Enjoy that.
Enjoy, if that's the word.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I won't be watching that film.
No.
I'd love to, but no.
I don't think I ever want to watch it again. It is so remorselessly bleak and stomach churning and depressing, and it had for a horror film. It had some interesting philosophical questions. Yeah. So a lot of people say, "Oh, it's just torture porn," but I feel it is that, but it also had a point to it, which made it, which elevated it above the rest of the other torture porns and things.
Kind of a point then.
But it did have some purpose or meaning to the gruesomeness and the violence, but ultimately it didn't make it any less unpleasant. And just as a final note, Pascal Laugier was tipped to be remaking Hellraiser about 10 years ago, after this film first came out, and I'm quite glad that the project never took off, because I think he would have made an absolutely nightmarish and sickening version of Hellraiser, even more so sickening than the original. I'm actually glad he never ended up making it.
Okay.
So on that cheery note, so what do you have for number 4?
I have Rec or Record, whichever way you want to say it.
Yes.
From, I think it's 2007, isn't it? Yeah, 2007. You've seen Rec, haven't you?
I have, yes.
Yeah, of course. So
I've actually got it on DVD.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Oh good. It's a good film.
It's
I really like it. I actually watched it on a whim on Sky Movies. I just saw it on there. Didn't know anything about it. Watched it. I was 14, 15. And absolutely terrified me. I wasn't expecting any of it really. Didn't know what it was about. But it was a pleasant surprise.
Yes.
So that was good.
Or unpleasant surprise, you might say.
Yeah, that's true. So the bit I found really scary in this is when the main character, so the TV host and her cameraman, find out the kind of origins of the weird infection thing that's going on in this apartment building. And it originated in a little girl whoever was looking after her ended up sort of shutting her in this penthouse thing, hoping that she'd just die of starvation. And obviously that didn't work because she comes in like all grown up and tall and lanky and monstrous, absolutely terrifying. And it's all, at this point, it's all night vision, so it's really creepy.
Which just makes everything terrifying, doesn't it?
Basically, yes. And it was horrible because she's so bony and like she's got just underwear on, but it's basically like sagging off of her because she's so skinny.
Not sexy then.
No, no, 2 out of 10 would not bang.
Definitely an 8-pinter.
Oh my god, but yeah, so that really scared me because I just wasn't expecting that either, because you kind of watch it thinking it's going to be just a typical zombie type thing.
Yeah.
And it really isn't. Like, it's so different.
Yeah.
It's just horrible.
It's quite groundbreaking for the time as well, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah.
I know found footage had been obviously around for about 9 or so years before that. But yeah, I think it really raised the bar for a lot of found footage films, didn't it? And you've got Rec. I think there's 3 of them now. There's Rec 1 and Rec. Well, obviously there's Rec 2, which I think is one of the few sequels which is better than the predecessor.
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it?
Mm-mm.
Oh, Rec 2.
I'm too scared to watch it because I love the first one so much, and I don't know if it's gonna ruin it for me.
I think I would watch Rec 2, but I would stop after that, because then there's Rec 3 Genesis, which is set at a wedding, and basically you've got footage of a wedding intercut with what happens later on in the evening, and they basically just flip between the two. It's like nice lovely wedding scenes, zombie outbreak, lovely wedding scene, zombie outbreak.
Nah, I don't think I'll watch it, to be honest.
The second one is very, very good.
Okay.
Because that's all about the SWAT team that gets sent in to clear up the mess after the first film. But it's all filmed from helmet cameras.
That's pretty cool.
It's really, really good.
I will give it a go. After all these years, I think I ought to, really.
Definitely very good.
But yeah, I think it's just seeing her for the first time just absolutely terrified me. And all of my friends, like, I loved it, because you know when you're making your friends watch something, especially as a teenager, and you're sitting there watching them, like they're watching it, and you're like,
and you can see,
waiting for the bit to come up, and you're like, yeah,
this is me a few years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was quite funny.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yes. I need to go back and revisit that film, I think, because I've got it on DVD, but I haven't watched it for a few years.
Oh, okay.
But interestingly, it was remade in American, wasn't it, as Quarantine, starring Jennifer Carpenter, who is Dexter's sister in the TV show.
Yeah, I absolutely hated it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was not good.
It was, I didn't like it either. No.
And they put the ending in the trailer. Like the ending scene.
They did.
They put it in the trailer.
Yeah. The iconic scene where she goes...
In fact, I think it's even the DVD cover.
It is. In fact, it is. You mentioned it, because it shows like a lopsided camera frame with her being...
With her, like...
Yeah.
Which I think Rec... I think that has part of the ending as the DVD cover, because I think it's her face, but it's out of context. Like, that could be any part of the film. Yeah. That really close up bit quite near before the whole night vision stuff. Yeah. I think that's like what it is.
It's like a sepia yellow colour, isn't it? Like a brown colour, With the little Rec in the bottom corner, as if it is the screen. Isn't it? Yeah.
So that's completely different. It's not really obvious. Like, when you see that scene, you wouldn't be like, oh yeah, that's ruined it for me.
That's her
or whatever.
being dragged away.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty bad.
Yeah, that is really bad. Yeah.
Yes. On to number 3.
Number 3, yes. So for my number 3, we have an absolute horror classic, A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984.
Yeah, good choice.
So again, it's quite an iconic horror. It's, Freddy is one of the big 4 of 80s, 70s and 80s horrors. You know, Jason, Michael, Leatherface, Freddy. And this film really stuck with me from my childhood, basically. It was one of the very, very, very first horrors I ever watched. Again, I was 3 when this film came out, so I probably saw it when I was about 7 or 8.
Oh, okay.
Because they used to play it on TV quite late at night and things at the weekend. And this is the first horror film I ever watched, which actually took me 3 attempts to get to the end.
Oh my god.
Because the first time I watched it, there's a bit in the beginning, which I'll go into in a bit more detail in a minute, which really, really petrified me, and I had to turn off straight after that.
Oh my god.
Then there's a bit halfway through where the main character, Nancy, I think her name is, played by Heather Langenkamp, she is having a bath, and the razor blade gloved hand comes up from in between her legs when she's in the bath. And again, just the concept of it just absolutely terrified me, of this unstoppable enemy who could get you wherever you were, whenever you wanted, even if you were asleep in your dreams and things. So it really taps into, fear on a primal level, a bit like, like Jaws, we were saying, for example, or the fear of the unseen, or body snatchers, just a foe who can get you wherever and whenever it wants, even in the sanctity of your sleep, or sanctuary of your sleep. So that was the second time I watched it, and then the third time I watched it, I finally made it to the end of the film. But the first time I watched it was the scene where Tina, the first girl to get killed, is brutally murdered in her sleep, whereby she's having this nightmare, and then she's thrashing around on the bed. She gets her nightgown whipped up, and then Freddy, this unseen, invisible entity, scrapes her stomach open with his razor glove, and you just see the 4 scratch marks just go down her naked stomach, and then she gets mangled all around the room. He plays with her and pushes her all over the ceiling, and the effects are absolutely remarkable for the time. And she's getting tumbling around the room, and then she falls onto the bed, which is absolutely soaked in blood and literally just absolutely awful. Could you imagine an 8-year-old boy watching that? That would be pretty. And this is after she has her nightmare whereby he's chasing her down the alleyway, and he's got those horrendous elongated arms that stretch the entire width of the alley, which means he can do whatever he wants, and he is absolutely unescapable. You can run away from him, and then he'll just appear in front of you anyway. And so he can literally defy the laws of physics and just do whatever he wants to get you. And that idea absolutely traumatized me when I was little.
I can see why, because with some of the films that I watched as a child, it wasn't... Actually, I think I did watch that one fairly young as well, but I think I was like 10, 11 when I watched that. Yeah. But when I was really young, it was more sort of ghosty things. Not quite as scary as that.
Not as... It's just really, really absolutely terrifying, wasn't it? Just really horrifically violent, particularly in the first one. The first one just set up the whole character as being an absolute horror demon. I've actually been watching the entire box set of parts 1 to 7 over the last few weeks, and what I've noticed is the character gets progressively more and more stupid as it goes along. So the balance between horror and comedy really shifts. 1, 2, and 3 are brilliant. 4, 5, and 6 are terrible, and then 7, Wes Craven's New Nightmare really redeems it and gets the whole franchise back on track. But it turns out that was the last one they made.
Right, yeah.
So there's some redemption to be had from that, because I can now view the fact that the character is no longer the frightening, demonic entity that I remember him as. Now I just remember him as being a hideously disfigured jester who just cackles at everything he says, and they're normally really unfunny jokes. Like just saying things like, "It's prime time, bitch," and just things like that. It's just not scary. Great. And they get progressively more ridiculous as they go along, which makes them funnier. Yeah. But at the time, when I was 9 years old, absolutely traumatizing.
Yes, I can imagine.
And that's before you think of the fact that he's hideously disfigured as well. Yeah. Just what he can do is terrifying enough in itself.
I agree with you there.
So, Nightmare on Elm Street, my number 3. What have you got for number 3, Annie?
So, quite a weird one. My number 3 is Misery.
Okay, yeah.
I'm pretty sure you know which scene I will be talking about.
Yes. I actually rewatched this film a few weeks ago with a friend because she had never seen it.
Oh, wow, okay.
So we enjoyed watching that.
Well, Yes, it's the very famous hobbling scene, as they call it, that absolutely scarred me as a child when I watched that.
The Kimberley Diamond Mines hobbling scene.
Pretty horrible. And do you know what, actually, I've rewatched it quite recently as well, actually, and it still makes me cringe.
Yes.
Like, not quite as badly as when I was a kid,
Yeah.
because it doesn't look as realistic to me now, but it's more the screaming and the lead up to it, where she's got the sledgehammer and she brings it down, and you're just like, well, actually, even before that, when she's putting the plank of wood between his ankles, you're just like, oh god, what's gonna happen?
And you can see like the way she's doing it so methodically, and she's talking about she's saying, that would be like they wouldn't just kill the slaves, they would they had to make sure they didn't escape, so what did she say? It's something like that would be like junking a new Mercedes just because it had a broken spring.
It's really,
which is
really
very
horrible.
Stephen King, isn't it?
Yes,
it's the noise, isn't it? It's just the snapping noise,
and his screaming and everything,
because it is a proper agonized wail, isn't it?
The whole scene is just really horrible. The tenseness of beforehand, and then like you said, the agonizing screams. It's just you can feel it. Like, it makes really my ankles ache thinking about it, actually.
Because you can just see it go, can't you?
It's really horrible.
Interestingly, have you ever read the novel?
Yeah, it's different, isn't it?
It's different because in the novel it's a fire axe, isn't it? And she keeps like knocking the fire axe with her foot as it's under the bed, and it really cranks up the suspense about what's under the bed. And then she finally brings it out, and then she chops his whole foot off.
I feel like that was nicer in a way.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, I feel that just chopping it off altogether would actually be well, not better, but less horrific.
Yeah, I mean, I was quite Stephen King obsessed as a child, and I read the book straight after watching the film. Yeah. And I literally thought that. I was like, oh, this is fine. I can lose a foot.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want the other thing. That's horrible.
Yeah.
So actually they've somehow made it worse than the book. Yeah. In a good way, I guess, but
it's
not for my tiny little scarred mind, though.
No. So because that was 1990 or 91, I think that was.
It was 1990. I have got it written down.
So I would have been 9 when that film came out. But
1990.
1990, Oscar-winning to Kathy Bates, of course. But
she's called Annie in it, which is great. And actually in Hereditary, isn't she called Annie as well?
She is.
It's really funny because a lot of the scenes I was thinking of had something to do with someone called Annie. Like, a lot of these aren't actually on my list, but I was like, what is it with that name?
Yeah. All comes back to that name.
But that there's not a lot to say about that scene.
No, I don't really know what else I can add to that, but I completely
it's
I
just
can
the build up.
Completely relate to that. It's the build up and the noise, isn't it? And I can still picture James Caan's sweaty, grimaced, agonized face like right now. That's how much it's stuck with me.
Yeah.
So number 2. By pure coincidence, Stephen King again.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah. Children of the Corn.
Oh my god, of course.
From 1984. Directed by the brilliantly named Fritz Kirsch.
I love that.
Starring Peter Horton and Linda Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the whole idea, the psychology of this film absolutely terrified me. And essentially, I don't know if you have seen the film recently, but basically it's about a group of children in a small town in the middle of Iowa or Ohio or one of those sort of Arkansas, one of those sort of cornbread states.
Yeah.
And they have begun worshipping something that lives in the cornfields, and they have all fallen prey to it. And then this thing has convinced the children to kill all of their parents, So you've got this town in the middle of Nebraska, I think it is. I think it's Nebraska, in the middle of nowhere, and the whole town is just completely run by children, and they've actually done a parody episode of it in South Park as well.
Of course.
And there's a scene towards the end which the whole denouement of the film, which absolutely petrified me when I was little, where I can't remember the exact things going on, but I remember Linda Hamilton ended up getting kidnapped and Peter Horton has to battle the children to get her back. But there's a scene where a load of the adults get murdered in the diner because basically the children have poisoned the coffee in the diner, and they end up killing loads of the adults. And just the psychology of children murdering their parents for some unknown reason or hitherto unseen reason just absolutely terrified me when I was little. And then you've got the finale whereby the character called Isaac, he gets possessed by the evil demon god that lives underneath the cornfield. And then his number two, which is a lad with long ginger greasy hair and wears dungarees, and it's called Malachi. And then Isaac gets possessed by the evil thing, and then Malachi starts to have a bit of a crisis of conscience, and then he wants to redeem himself, but then Isaac comes back for him, and he says in a demonic voice, "He wants you too, Malachi." Oh my God. And that moment absolutely terrified me when I was little. And I have to admit, I'm not too proud to admit that I actually had to spend the night in Mummy's bed when I saw this. Because I was very, very young. I must have been about 5 years old when I watched this.
Oh wow.
And because it came out, say for example, if it came out in 1984 and I saw it in about 1989, I would have been very, very young and watching like really, really frightening stuff like this. And this is one of only 2 films ever that has cost me an entire night's sleep.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I can see why it's your number 2 then. Yeah. That does remind me of something really funny though. So when I watched it, I think I was a teenager and I watched it on Zone Horror.
Oh yeah.
And
I love that channel.
It was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still a thing, but I used to really love it. And after that, I noticed that where I lived, a lot of mums called their children Malachi.
Oh really?
So it always made me think of that film. Like they thought it was like the new in kind of name, and I was like, oh, I just had him in my mind.
We've actually seen the film.
Yeah, exactly. Like
yeah,
when you see him, you won't want to call your child that anymore. So
like sort of ginger, greasy hair.
Yeah, exactly.
Dungarees,
like,
Bible worshipping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not what they had in mind, probably.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Ironically, I found out recently that Malachi was actually played by Courtney Gaines, who's actually gone on to be in quite a few big things lately. I can't actually think of any examples off the top of my head, but he's definitely a name that's on my radar at the moment.
Okay, that's cool.
But yeah, this film was just absolutely petrified me, and yeah, I was just traumatized by it for a long time after I watched it.
It was really spooky.
Really spooky, yeah.
Okay, so my number 2 is Pet Sematary. And there's
Stephen King again.
Yeah, Stephen King again.
Yeah. What have you done to us, Stephen King?
What you did to our childhood.
You've ruined our world.
But it's probably shaped us into who we are today.
Yeah.
So you know.
I meant shake, not ruined. Yeah.
Yes, that's the word.
That's what I meant.
Same thing. So the reason why that scared me so much is because obviously the toddler, who his dad brings him back to life with the old ancient burial ground thing, and he actually nicks one of his dad's scalpels.
Yes.
And runs off to the neighbour's house. And the thought alone of an evil toddler running around with a scalpel,
Yes.
that is terrifying.
Yes.
But the scene which really stuck with me was obviously where he goes to the neighbour's house, poor lovely Judd.
Played by Fred Gwynne.
Yep, of course.
Who's Herman Munster.
Oh, yes. And this little shit hides under his bed, waits for him to come past, and slashes the back of his feet. What is it called? The
Achilles tendon.
Yeah, that's right. So I think it might be one actually that he slashes.
Just one.
Oh,
yeah.
It's so gross. And then he falls to the floor, obviously, because it's very painful. And then he also slashes across his mouth, which is another thing that I really don't like. It's very cringe.
Yeah.
And then takes a big old chunk out of his neck as well as the cherry on top.
Yeah.
Because the other two things weren't enough, so he takes a big old chunk out of his throat.
Bites his throat out. Yeah.
Which is really mean, because Judd was lovely.
He was, So he was played by John Lithgow in the remake, wasn't he?
Yes.
But we will not talk about that because I like my face the way it is.
It's a sore subject for me. But yeah, so that was absolutely terrifying. And I mean, I don't like children anyway, so maybe this instilled it into me early on, obviously.
Yes, yeah. It's planted the seed of... Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like I say, I mean, evil children is one thing, but evil dead children is another, isn't it?
Evil dead children with a scalpel is it?
Yeah.
Other thing.
Yeah, it's a whole other level, isn't it? Yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of mean how he killed that guy.
That was really sadistic, and I have that on VHS somewhere.
That's cool.
And that was a scene that really stuck with me because that film gave me a bit of a thing about ankles and tendons.
Yes, yeah.
Because there's a French horror film which I won't name, which also has a scene involving some bolt cutters and somebody's ankle, which makes me sick every time I think about it.
I don't like it.
And there's also the misery scene, which we've just talked about, and just anything involving Achilles tendons.
Yeah. Any ankly things I don't really like
ankles,
either.
Wrists and knees, Sounds a bit like a children's song, doesn't it?
What did you say?
Ankles, wrists and knees.
Wrists and knees.
Wrists and knees.
Oh my god.
Wrists and knees.
And then my bit would be and eyes and belly buttons, because I hate things to do with those as well.
Oh
so.
yeah. I feel like Beth, she doesn't like anything to do with eyes.
No, well for me it's more the push. I don't mind eyes coming out, but I don't like things going into eyes. Yeah. That's pretty horrible. Like smushing them.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, like someone could stab it, fine with that. But you know, like if someone does the old
pushing in with thumbs.
Yeah, I don't like that. That's pretty horrible.
A bit like in one of the James Bond films where the fella gets his eyes pushed in with thumbs. It's like that was quite sadistic. And
I see it in quite a lot of things actually.
Seems a bit out of place, yeah. Game of Thrones as well.
Game of Thrones, 28 Weeks Later.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of eye violation.
But yes, that is my number 2.
Oh, right.
I'm such a child.
Would you like to know what the scariest thing I have ever seen is?
Yeah.
And has traumatized me ever since I saw it when I was little.
Okay.
Again, I probably should revisit that bit I said earlier about this film. The Children of the Corn cost me an entire night's sleep.
Yeah. And
basically made me have to, spend the whole night with mummy. I was very young. I probably should add. And this one did the same thing.
Okay.
Amityville 2, The Possession.
I haven't actually seen that.
From 1982, directed by the brilliantly named Damiano Damiani.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Again, just the whole film from top to bottom, because it not only is it an 80s horror, which is filmed in that sort of soft focus, slightly dreamy, hallucinogenic sort of way where you're not really sure what is real and what isn't.
Yeah.
Again, a bit like The Thing I was mentioning earlier, absolutely brilliant commitment to practical effects, like groundbreaking prosthetics works in it. And this is actually a prequel to the 1979, I think it is, Amityville with James Brolin.
Mm-hmm.
So this is detailing everything that happened before the Lutz family moved in.
Oh, okay.
Which is like, so essentially what caused the house to be possessed in the first place, or the house to be haunted. And the whole film just absolutely terrified me when I was little. I couldn't actually name. Actually, I can. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, I can actually name several scenes which really, really traumatized me when I was little. And there was the young lad who, if you haven't seen the film, again, massive spoiler alert. But there's the young lad called Sonny who ends up being possessed by the demon because the house is built on an Indo-burial ground. He then takes up a rifle, shoots his entire family in their sleep because he's possessed by a demon, or says he is. Is he? Isn't he? We're not sure. So he ends up murdering his entire family, and the actual possession scene is an absolute nightmare of body horror and weird camera work, where it shows the camera zooming into his body and zooming out again, and then his face starts to have those weird like air pocket things going up, and his eyes change colour, he goes all sweaty, and bizarrely he actually ends up looking a lot like Ian Beale off EastEnders.
That's not what you want to
Adam
look
Mudgett.
like.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry.
And this is like 1980s Ian Beale when he was, really skinny and pale. Sonny also has a very heavily implied incestuous relationship with his sister Patricia during the film.
Okay.
Again, I don't even need to know if I need to embellish on the fact that I was about 8 years old and I was seeing a boy and a girl who are brother and sister sneaking around the house, kissing each other and things, and sharing a bed, and it's all a bit weird.
Yeah.
You've got the iconic haunted house scenes where the window slams shut and the flies congregate outside the window, and just absolutely terrifying. And then you've got there's a scene towards the end where a priest comes to visit him whilst he's in the holding cell of the police station, and his eyes are all yellow, and his voice is, and the priest says to the demon, please leave this young boy's body, and he says, "What for? I like it in here," which is just like, oh god,
that's horrible.
Yeah, exactly. And then he ends up just breaking out of the prison van and going on the run, and then the priest follows him to the house, and the priest convinces the demon to jump into him instead.
Yeah.
So then the priest ends up becoming not infected. The priest ends up becoming possessed, and then Sonny's body breaks apart. Again, all using prosthetics, no CGI. Breaks apart to reveal what can only be described as a 7-foot luminous white slimy worm with luminous bulbous yellow eyes, which is the form of the demon.
That's really weird. Really,
really, really disturbing. So imagine all these, you've seen all these events within about an 82-minute film.
Yeah, that's quite a lot.
Ironically from 1982 as well. It cost me an entire night's sleep, and that film has traumatized me ever since I watched it. It's the scariest film and most horrifying film I have ever watched.
Wow.
And I saw it again recently as well, a few years ago, and the effects, again, probably because of the use of prosthetics and animatronics, which to me are always far more scarier than CGI, which you can even CGI blood you can see is fake.
Yeah.
If it just sprays out in this really generic sort of way.
Yeah.
absolutely terrified me, and the effects still hold up to this day, and it's the scariest film I've ever watched. It's one of only 2 films that has ever cost me an entire night's sleep.
I need to watch it.
And
I've never seen it.
That is more scary than Children of the Corn.
Wow.
So.
I've only seen the first one, so I'll definitely need to watch it.
It's definitely worth a watch, yeah.
Okay.
The Ryan Reynolds one from 2005, I think it is. Again, quite CGI heavy, and it's quite sanitized. But if you want the real deal, Amityville 2, The Possession.
Okay. Nice.
Petrifying.
I'll take your word for it, and I'll watch it on your recommendation.
Please do, yeah.
Okay, so my number 1, I wouldn't say it's the scariest film I've ever seen, but I have got a reason for making it my number 1, obviously.
It's all personal to you, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Because I've probably seen films that I've found scarier than a lot of what's on this list, but it's oddly like just particular scenes from some that have really stuck with me. Yeah. Even if the film itself isn't that scary, like the Mark Twain one. I mean, it's a kids' film. So, my number 1 is It.
Okay, yeah.
And I think you know that It holds a very special place in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
I love the book. I read that as a kid, which I really probably shouldn't have done, especially if anybody knows the ending of that book. Although I don't remember that at all, so either I skipped it or I didn't understand it, so I was just like, oh yeah, whatever.
I probably should mention, I have to admit, I've never read the book.
Okay.
But I have seen the TV miniseries and obviously the Andy Muschietti films.
Oh yeah, of course. It was the miniseries that I've chosen as my number 1.
Yeah.
And that is because of a few reasons. So the first one is that I'm pretty sure this is the first kind of horror thing I'd seen with my dad, and I think I was about 8 when I watched it.
Yeah.
Because I guess it is I was going to say, I think it's a fairly tame one to start off with, but actually there are bits of it that are still quite scary.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's actually 2 parts of it that really stuck with me. Obviously the Georgie scene.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was pretty terrifying, and that really got me, because again, I'd never seen anything like that before, so I was like, oh my god, what is this?
Yeah.
And then the second scene that stuck with me even more, and my other reason for putting it on the list, is that there's a bit where Mike has a photo album and they're all looking at it together, and they're noticing that Pennywise is liking loads of the pictures, obviously, and then it flips over to one really old photo. And it comes to life, and there's like circus music and like all performers doing stuff on the street, and then Pennywise is in the background, and he starts doing these little like backflips and things, and he's like, oh hey, and like dancing everywhere, and then he notices the children through the book, and he's like, it's like a really horrible noise. And then he starts running up. Yeah. And there's like a lamppost at the front of the front of the picture. So he climbs up it, and he like gets right up in the camera, and he's like shouting at the kids, basically telling them that he's going to kill them. Yeah. And then just to finish that off, he sticks his hand through the book to grab at them. Luckily they knock it to the floor. Yeah. But that whole thing, really traumatized me as a child. And mainly it wasn't even the hand coming through the book thing, it was just him talking to the camera. Yeah. Because for me, it gave me the realization that that's one of my big fears of films, is when a character speaks to you. Yeah. Like, not even necessarily just breaking the fourth wall, but if it's, they're treating you as if you're the person that like telling they're going to kill.
You're interacting.
Yeah.
It's almost like a the main villain saying, I'm going to kill you next. Yeah.
Exactly. So imagine 8-year-old me watching that. I was absolutely terrified. But there's so many other things like that that I've realised scare me as well. Yeah. And there's like Twin Peaks. It happens in Twin Peaks where they look at the camera, and loads of other things that I can't actually think of. But yeah, that's why I put it as my number one, is because it was one of the first horror things I'd ever seen, and also it gave me that realisation of the big fear I have with horror films.
It's absolutely, and it taps into what I mentioned earlier about A Nightmare on Elm Street, whereby it basically shows that, you know, killers aren't just boxed into this little sanitized, you know, environment whereby they will chase the hero down, the hero will kill them. It'll all be in a real-time environment, you know, where the real people control the rules.
Mm-hmm.
This sort of like genre-bending, rule-shifting horror is showing that it's really the villains that have control in these films. You know, like Pennywise can be whatever he wants to be and do whatever he wants to do and appear however he wants to look like, just like Freddy.
Mm-hmm.
Just like The Thing, you know, it's the fear of the unknown, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And if they can do whatever they want, whenever they want, same as, you know, even just a small thing like Hollow Man, you know, the Kevin Bacon film. You know, he's an invisible man. He can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, and he's just a normal human.
Yeah.
So you apply that logic to an ancient evil that manifests itself in the form of a clown, or a demon that can murder you in your dreams.
Oh yeah, that's pretty terrifying.
It just, you know, the rules go out the window, don't they? And that's what makes them so terrifying.
Yeah, there is that as well, obviously.
And then there's the whole weird thing about breaking the fourth wall when it didn't ever happen, really, did it? Like that, I'd never heard of it done before that. Yeah,
exactly. It's probably quite a new thing, wasn't it? Actually. But yes, that terrified me as a child, and also I think where I was a similar age to the kids in the film. I think they were like a few years older than me. But I kind of felt like not like I related to them, because obviously I wasn't running away from a scary ancient being like Pennywise, but I just felt their helplessness, and I think that really got to me as well as a child. So,
but that's interesting. Another thing you mentioned is about how, you know, in normal, for want of a better word, horror films, where you just think there's an adult against an adult. You know, say like a cop versus killer, for example. You know, that's quite an even match, isn't it? But if you've got a young, helpless child against an ancient evil who can do whatever he wants and appear however he wants, that's a really uneven playing field, isn't it? And that's the psychology of that makes it terrifying. And the same way as in The Shining, where a lot of people say The Shining is not a scary film, which in a way it's not. But then at the same time, when you look at the psychology of it, if your father was chasing you with a fire axe because he'd gone mad because of he'd been possessed by demons, and you're a young boy in this cavernous hotel, you know, that's you're going to feel pretty helpless, aren't you? Against your father who's trying to murder you.
Exactly.
It's again Stephen King. It's the psychology of it that makes it scary. So I completely agree.
Yes. So that's it, I think.
That was an excellent choice.
Thank you so much.
That's right. You're very welcome. I really enjoyed your choices there.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much for your top 10 scariest moments in films and cinema. I've really enjoyed them. You've got some very interesting choices there. We felt that it would be really good to end with some honourable mentions that didn't quite make the cut. So I've got a few here which I'll rattle off in no particular order. Number 10, The Descent, directed by Neil Marshall from 2005.
That's a good one.
Which is basically the first sighting of the crawlers. Possibly a toss-up with the piece of scaffolding coming through the window. During the dream sequence, absolutely terrified me, and Empire's website said that this film is absolutely dedicated to scaring you shitless, which I think is a perfect summation of that film.
I definitely agree with that.
Again, a film I watched when I was a child was Clash of the Titans from 1981.
Okay.
Specifically the Medusa scene with Harry Hamlin, where he goes into Medusa's lair, and he's tasked with he's challenged. I can't really speak. He's challenged with the task of cutting Medusa's head off without actually looking her in the eye.
Oh wow!
Absolutely terrifying piece of Ray Harryhausen animation. So that's number 9. Number 8 is Krull. Again, 1983 fantasy children's film from Peter Yates, who's a brilliant action director. Just the whole film in general, really. It had that really terrifying, dark, dreamlike 80s, mid to late 80s children's film.
Yeah.
But really, really frightening stuff. On a similar theme, The Neverending Story from 1984, directed by Wolfgang Petersen.
Yep.
A lot of people think the horse is named Atreyu, but Atreyu is the little boy's name.
Yeah, that's what I
It's
thought.
actually the horse is actually called Artax.
Oh, okay.
But specifically the scene where Artax drowns in the swamp, obviously it's traumatized me as a child when I was little. There's actually an interesting backstory about this scene where a lot of people have actually been led to believe the horse did actually drown in the swamp in real life.
Oh, okay.
But in fact, that's actually a rumor.
Okay.
It did actually survive being lowered into the swamp, and then was given to the young boy who plays Atreyu, Noah Hathaway, as a present.
That's cool.
After shooting finished. However, the cost of transporting the horse back to his hometown was too expensive, so Noah Hathaway ended up leaving the horse in Germany, where they filmed it. Although there was an accident during the filming of the scene, or during the filming of the film, whereby Noah Hathaway got pitched off a horse and actually broke his back.
Oh, that's not good.
So it's all these sinister elements to this seemingly innocuous children's film.
Yes.
Makes it very sinister. At number 6, I've got Bone Tomahawk by F. Craig Zahler from 2015, which is a brilliant Western horror. There's a bit towards the end, which if you've seen Bone Tomahawk, you will know exactly the bit I'm on about. And if you haven't seen it, go and see it, because it is brilliant. There's a bit towards the end which is literally horrific, and I can still picture it in my head, and it still gives me shivers whenever I think about it. And
cool.
It didn't quite make the top 10 list, but it was really, really gruesome. So yes, definitely go and check it out.
Okay, cool.
So number 5, I have picked the first hour of Predator from 1987, because it was one of the first sci-fi action horror films I ever experienced, and actually got to watch after somebody recorded it for me on tape.
Oh, cool.
And I watched it with my brother and my mum when I was about 8 years old.
Yeah.
I'd never seen anything like it before. And ironically, we got to the bit where all the hardcore violence is finished, and then it got a little bit too late to finish the film.
Yeah.
So we watched the last half an hour the next day, and my mum said to us, you kids go off to bed, and I'll just check the last half an hour, make sure it's suitable to watch.
Yeah,
and of course, like the last half an hour is the least violent bit of the whole film, so we ended up watching the whole thing. Okay, number 4, I've got American Werewolf in London, 1982, directed by John Landis. Specifically, the moors scene at the very beginning and the subway scene, because I spent a lot of time visiting London on day trips and stuff when I was very young with my parents, and the subway scene of American Werewolf in London just absolutely terrifies me to this day. Again, not much use of CGI or prosthetics and practical effects, and the fact that you don't see what the creature looks like until the very end in its full form makes it all the more frightening.
That's true.
If you keep it a secret what the thing looks like, and maybe don't put it on the poster as some films do, you'll have a much more suspenseful film, and this is a perfect example of that.
Cool.
Number 3 is the finale to Society by Brian Yuzna from 1989. Again, stomach-churningly repulsive and violent, and actually made me feel a little bit sick when I was
nice.
little. I won't go into the details of it because it's, but
Great.
but it's just, to say the word lurid doesn't quite do it justice.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Ooh.
So anyone out there who has seen Society by Brian Yuzna, you will know the sequence I'm talking about. So yeah, worth checking out.
Okay.
And number 2 of my honourable mentions is Night Watch, which is a film about a cash-strapped young man who goes to get a job as a night security guard at a mortuary.
Nice.
They remade it in 1997 with Ewan McGregor, but specifically I'm talking about the Danish original, and specifically the ending when you find out who it is who's been doing it all. And there's a certain song that the person likes to sing as they're killing people, and it just really, really unnerving.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
It's not Tiptoe Through the Tulips, is it?
I don't think I've heard that one. No.
Have you not?
No, I don't think so. No.
By Tiny Tim?
No, I don't think I've heard that.
You've seen Insidious? It's the song that's in that.
I have seen Insidious. I can't remember that song though.
Oh, never mind. I'll show you.
And my final honourable mention is Howard, A New Breed of Hero, as it was called in the UK. It was also known more famously as Howard the Duck.
Oh, okay.
Which is he's actually a Marvel character. He's in Guardians of the Galaxy, directed by William Huyck from 1986. One of the worst films ever made. Tim Robbins is in it.
Oh, okay.
Leah Thompson. It was actually renamed Howard, A New Breed of Hero in the UK to stop it being called like Howard the Turkey instead of Howard the Duck, because it was such a huge flop that they actually renamed it. Specifically the terrifying ending, not the bit where Leah Thompson has sex with Howard, who's a duck.
Okay.
What were they thinking?
No.
Yeah, she has sex with a cigar chomping, attitude spouting duck.
Does that count as bestiality? Or
I think it does.
I
think it does. Yeah. But the bit I am most terrified of is the ending where Dr. Walter Jennings turns into the giant demon thing at the end. I was 5 when this film came out, and I managed to see a little bit of it on TV. And it was also on late at night on a Friday night and things like that. And the bit where Jeffrey Jones's character turns into this giant demon thing, it was just absolutely terrifying. And I still remember it quite vividly to this day, but not enough to quite make the top 10 list.
Right, yeah.
It hasn't stuck with me as much as the things on the other list have.
Okay.
Hence, it makes number 1 of my honourable mentions.
Cool.
So have you got any honourable mentions?
Only a very, very, very short list. And it's just things that I want to mention, because for me it was really hard to come up with a list of scary moments, because either the whole film scares me or it was scary but it doesn't stick with me, if that makes sense. So the only things I wanted to mention were other things that really scare me. So a lot of the time it's like movements and things. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like Us, the way that the main doppelganger moves absolutely terrified me when I saw that in the cinema.
As in, like, sort of like
she's like very smooth,
scuttling around.
But she's quite smooth. She walks down with like a little scissors here, and she just kind of was like,
she just glides, doesn't she? Yeah,
that's very unsettling to me. Unsettling movements kind of freak me out. So also
like jerky movements and things like that. Yeah,
anything like that, really. Anything that's just sort of unnatural. Whether it's jerky or smooth, too smooth for my liking. Yeah, anything like that, it just doesn't. It just unsettles me.
Yeah, so. I know what you mean. It's like there's a music video by Slipknot called Vermilion.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen it? And they've basically got a model to act out like stop motion sort of thing. And they must have taken days and days to film.
Yeah.
So the background is going by at like 1,000,000 miles an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and they've stop motioned a real person.
Yeah, that's really creepy.
Or anything that they film backwards and then reverse the footage.
Anything like that, yeah. Yes, so movements, and also anything where they sort of layer a voice over another voice, if that makes sense. So the only example I can think of, I know there's definitely more than this, but the only example that springs to mind is Paranormal Activity.
Oh, yeah.
So when her partner's like, okay, cool, we need to get out of the house because all this stuff keeps happening. And clearly she's been possessed because she's like, what are you talking about? It's fine. We'll be fine. And he's like, what? You're crazy. Like, literally all this stuff's been happening. And she's like, no, it's fine. Let's just stay here. And he's like, okay. And then leaves. And then she's on her own, still on camera. And she says something like, I think we'll be okay now. Yeah. But you can hear the kind of demonic voice over it.
Yes.
In a different kind of tone.
Yeah.
Like,
I think you sent me that clip the other week, didn't you? Yeah. It was like...
Yeah, it's really like that over her voice. That really freaks me out.
Yeah, that is really disturbing.
Yes, and also this is a really weird thing. So The Exorcist did scare me as a kid, but it didn't stick with me. However, still pictures of her really freak me out.
Oh yeah,
actually not so much now, but when I was younger, if I saw like a screamer video, you know, like you said, like where you have to follow the maze and then it comes up with her face at the end, that face, just the still picture, that's it, I wouldn't be sleeping. And I don't know why, because I've seen the film and I was absolutely fine with it. Like obviously it was scary, but the only thing it did was put me off Weetabix because I would puke.
Oh right.
It reminded me of my Weetabix, when it goes all soggy. It just reminded me of that, and I was like,
I've never actually thought of Weetabix in that manner before, but
you will now.
Yeah, so, I've got a giant box of them at home as well. So
oh, sorry about that. You'll be thinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically, there used to be a huge thing at the time. When I was a teenager, where people would make pictures of what looked like a normal, I don't know, like a wedding or something where the whole family's together, and then they just stick her bloody face like in between their legs or something, and they go, when you see it you'll know, so you're looking for it, and I'm like, oh, that's it, sleepless nights.
Or like when you see it, and things like when you see it you'll know. So
did not enjoy that.
One of the family, and it's like share when you see it, and you're looking around all over this picture, and it turns out that the child is being carried in a sports bag in one of them, just things like that.
It's things like that mess with your head that scare me more. Like obviously gory things are horrible, jumpy things are horrible, but they're not things that stick with me. Exactly. I just am kind of horrified by them at the time, and then I'm over it, but the things that are more psychological, I don't like that. Again, I do like it, but
it's what we've said throughout most of this list, is understated, underplayed, the unseen, the unknown, silent,
or just unnatural
it's
things.
The creeping unnatural menace that was really, really scary with people, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a bit like, for example, have you ever seen a film called I think it's called The Last Broadcast?
No, I haven't seen that.
My friend watched it on DVD. It's basically one of the very early found footage films. But it's all about the New Jersey Devil, which is apparently responsible for a series of murders in backwoods America.
Yeah.
And my friend said there's a bit where the videotape, this fella's giving a speech to the camera, and the videotape jumps, and it goes, the devil.
Oh man, that's horrible.
And he couldn't tell whether it was an actual fault with the film or if it was deliberately... the director deliberately messing with you.
That's horrible.
Yeah. So,
but now I really want to watch it.
Yeah, it's a really, really great film, and there's an absolutely brilliant twist at the end of the film as well. So yeah, it's well worth checking out. But but my friend was like, "Did I actually just see that? Was that deliberate, or was that just a fault in the film?"
Actually, that's another thing that really scares me, is when things are played off as like technical glitches and things, like with my fourth kind thing, like anything like that really scares me as well, because it's like you said with your friend, like you think, was that actually in there? Is this me? What's going on? Like,
just see that? Yeah.
That's That's pretty scary.
It's again, it's just less is more, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Understated, and that's why Ari Aster is such a master. Ari Aster is a master.
I just realised.
I'm a poet, and I didn't even realise.
Oh my god.
So Ari Aster is a master of he's like the leading voice in horror at the moment, because everything he does just turns conventional horror tropes on its head.
Oh, okay.
Like Hereditary and Midsummer. Just brilliant. It's all understated, and that's what makes it absolutely terrifying.
Yes.
Okay, and that concludes our top 10 scary moments of films in cinema, and a good wedge of honourable mentions that didn't quite make the grade as well. So we really hope you've enjoyed watching the video, and tune in again soon for more There Will Be Films.
Oh, actually, also, if you would like to put your top 10 scariest moments in the comments, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to see what everyone else has. I bet it's completely different to our list.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing is about this video is it's completely personal to what is scary to you, what is scary to me. You might have a completely different opinion on things.
Yeah.
We'd absolutely love to hear what you've got to say.
Yeah.
So, and if you want to leave us any feedback in the comments, good or bad, it's all good as far as we're concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Please let us know. Bye.